Ladies and gentlemen, Roger Stone is sentenced to 5 years. He pinned a tweet from Tucker Carlson explaining why Roger Stone should be pardoned. President Trump just assembled a team that will give him information on individuals that should be pardoned. He's going to pardon Roger Stone eventually, and I think that he's going to pardon Michael Flynn and Papadopoulos, or I think that he's going to eventually reverse the Mueller probe in every manner possible. The Mueller probe was a temper tantrum that was not lawful. That was a setup. They set up and framed President Trump, and I stated that from the beginning. Stone, here, this is NBCNews.com. Stone was never charged with doing anything illegal during the campaign. Instead, the charges were based on his efforts to cover up what he did and to intimidate another person to do the same. Now, they didn't find any collusion with Russia. The underlying theme here is let's go after people, get them ensnared, entrap them, get them on process crimes. Make it seem that they're obstructing justice if they lie to Congress, well, that's a crime. But it's not a crime if Andrew McCabe lied 3 times under oath. Or when James Clapper lies to Congress, or when James Comey, or when Clapper and Brennan documented they lied to Congress, perjury, under oath, and they had the intent to deceive. But anyway, he didn't do anything to obstruct justice because they didn't find any evidence that Trump worked with Russia. Furthermore, they don't know how the DNC emails were obtained. Then the whole point, okay, the knock on Roger Stone is that it's true. He did lie a lot. He had nothing to do with the DNC emails. Okay? Assange never needed Roger Stone, and Roger Stone had nothing to do with the DNC emails. He engaged in a tremendous amount of puffery and pretending to be something he was not because he's a showman and a political operative. That got him in a lot of trouble. Okay. They wanted retribution, so they just wanted to set up and frame people. He didn't do anything illegal. Michael Flynn never did anything illegal with Sergei Kislyak. George Papadopoulos never did anything illegal with Alexander Downer. They got them on process crimes. They set up and framed everyone around Trump, utilizing an investigation that was started with a dossier purchased by Clinton, who will be the nominee. Maybe it's my fault because I didn't explain myself correctly. In my last segment, people were like, "What are you smoking? You're nuts. Bloomberg didn't win. Bloomberg lost." He won in terms of the objective he wanted to attain. Do you think he cared about being a democratic socialist? Do you think he cared about complaining about the 1%? Or he's obviously not a good debater. He's obviously uninspiring. He's obviously himself. That's not my point of my last segment. Michael Bloomberg was efficient enough, or he was successful at differentiating himself between everyone who has objectives or policies that Democrats don't think are feasible, and himself. He's paving the way for Hillary Clinton. It took him 3 or 4 months to already surpass Biden. In most of these states, he's above Biden. Nationally, he's either second or third. It took him 3 months. Bernie has had a head start for 4 years. They cheated him in 2016. They'll cheat him again. Obviously, what I tried to convey, and it's my fault, Michael Bloomberg obviously didn't win because he was eloquent and he was inspiring. Obviously, everyone was, piling on top of him. But that's exactly that's what he wanted. He wanted to tell the Democratic establishment, look, most of you agree with me. Most of you don't want Medicare for all, which is true. They haven't passed Medicare for all. Even AOC, there's no Medicare for all legislation that they're even interested in. They're not interested in Medicare for all. The whole point is to get progressive votes back into the Democratic Party in 2020 to vote for Clinton in 2020. Michael Bloomberg is not going to be nominee, but he's going to clear the field. He's going to make sure that all those pledged delegates who are not legally bound to vote for the winner. So Bernie Sanders won Iowa. He got less delegates than Mayor Pete. He won Iowa in terms of the popular vote. Mayor Pete won Iowa because he got the most delegates. They tied in delegates in New Hampshire, even though they say he won New Hampshire. What do you think is going to happen when Bernie wins a state and he gets less or tied in delegates? All 4 or 5 people are going to end the Democratic primary with the same amount of roughly the same amount of delegates. So if they go into a brokered convention, so Clinton is going to run a day before, the day of, a month before, 2 months, who cares? The whole thing is a farce to begin with, just like Roger Stone's sentencing. They go into the convention, Bernie, Biden, Klobuchar, Bloomberg, Warren, Mayor Pete, they all have roughly the same amount of delegates, give or take. Okay. Who do you think is going to then unite the entire party? Everyone will say, you know what, we got to vote for Clinton. Hillary Clinton will unite the party one way or another because it's her party and she'll be nominee when she wants to. Anyway, nobody thought that she would lose, and I was saying that she would lose in 2015 and 2016. Okay. She's going to be nominee. So back then I was unrealistic because I said Bernie was the front runner and he would have won. He would have won. They cheated him. Then finally people realized I was right. Now people say, oh my God, Clinton, she's not even running. Everything she says, the opposite. She means the opposite. So if they did that whole Trump with the Pinocchios at 15,000 lies, you can multiply that times 4 with Clinton. Okay? Anyway, the whole thing is set up. The Democratic primary is set up so that they have one person like Biden who can serve as a foil to Bernie Sanders and Warren, and who can be more realistic than Amy Klobuchar or Mayor Pete or any other establishment person. So Bloomberg was successful in that to that extent. That was my point of my last segment. Anyway, whatever. The whole thing's a sham anyway. Bloomberg is number 2 or 3 nationally. Does that make any sense to you? Okay. Yesterday, he managed to differentiate himself and managed to say, look, I'll be the new Biden. Nobody liked it. He looked bad doing it, but he was successful in that. Now there's a new Biden in town. He racks up delegates. The whole thing's nonsense. The delegates are not even pledged to vote for the winner. Which gets back to Roger Stone. Think in terms of strategy, broad strategy. Okay. Either all of this is simply organic and happen and by coincidence and because the justice system works because the Mueller probe and Comey and the Steele dossier, they were all attempts at really protecting the United States of America, or it's a political machine that lost miserably after cheating Bernie Sanders. The American public learned that the DNC was an extension of Clinton's campaign through the DNC emails. To mitigate that, they then fabricated this narrative by intelligence agencies that are always wrong, from the Bay of Pigs to the Gulf of Tonkin to Bush's failed interventions. They didn't even predict the fall of the Berlin Wall prior to that. Then you have Facebook ads. They're always wrong. Tell me when the intelligence community predicted anything or was accurate about a major event in U.S. history. They're never accurate about a major event. They're always either saying, I'm sorry, we failed, or they just failed to predict it. The alternative to, well, gosh, all of this just happened organically and without any with just a coincidence that all of this happened to benefit Clinton. The alternative is that you had people, Peter Strzok, who said, we will stop Trump. Clinton should win 1,000,000-0. You have James Comey and McCabe and Clapper and Brennan, who are on MSNBC and who get published by the Washington Post and New York Times and who are contributors to CNN. Do you think all of the CNN producers and Washington Post editors, do you think they're wearing MAGA hats to work? No, they're not. No, they're not. No, they're not. They're all Democrats. It is a political machine. They didn't have to write. Madam Secretary doesn't have to write a letter. I, Madam Secretary, want you to cover up my overt attempt at using a server's and transferring illegally top secret intelligence onto them so I can hide my correspondence for 4 years and delete 30,000, of course. Of course. Where was I? Yes, and then deleting 30,000 emails for yoga, but not really for yoga. They were Clinton Foundation pay-to-play schemes, obviously. Signed, Madam Secretary. Oh, by the way, please inform Alexander Downer to set up and frame Papadopoulos in an absurd attempt at deceiving the American public that they were just having drinks and Papadopoulos, I don't know, said something. Figure it out. And get some weird, shady Maltese professor also. Signed, and then, you know what? And then impeach Trump on trying to withhold military assistance. Signed, Madam Secretary. Don't let this note ever leave your presence. Signed, Madam Secretary. And Bubba Bill. Okay, and here's the note. Here's the instructions. Do you think this all happens just because Madam Secretary gives detailed instructions? No, it's a political machine. They're all working for their own, they all have their own objectives, but their own objectives align with one another. James Comey is an establishment, left-leaning, essentially a Democratic Party operative, but he didn't have to act as one officially. He just had to cover up Clinton's crimes because that would have hurt, in his mind, that would have hurt the FBI to go ahead and indict Clinton for crimes that anyone else would have been indicted for. And then when he wrote the Comey letter, that was because her crimes were so grandiose. Classified information was everywhere. There was more classified information outside President Obama's administration than inside. So they found the classified info intel on Anthony Weiner's laptop. Okay, 20 hazmat suits. We had to touch the laptop. Fine, yeah, but you know what? We searched it for a week, and we found nothing. At the end of the day, he had all these agents who were all Democrats. Kevin Kleinsmith, 51 examples of anti-Trump text messages. If you're Comey, even if Comey wore a MAGA hat to work, all his subordinates, everyone there was anti-Trump. So the whole system, they were all working with the Washington press. They were all embedded, working with liberal and progressive journalists, yes, we know who they are, in publications to spread the Steele dossier. The Steele dossier was purchased by Hillary Clinton. Her campaign through a law firm. That's an FEC violation. I wrote about that in the Daily Caller. Big one. In addition to getting $80 million from down-ticket Democrats. And Kenneth Vogel talked about that in Politico. Broke that story. But why do you think all of this happens? For Bloomberg? For Biden? Because of Bernie? They're going to let Bernie now. The whole thing is rigged to prevent Bernie from winning. 20, 30 years, when Bill Clinton won, there weren't superdelegates, and there weren't delegates that could just do whatever they wanted without any repercussions. There weren't the same type of superdelegate and pledge delegate system. Let's put it that way. There was a form of meritocracy where a Bill Clinton or a President Obama could come out and win. There is no meritocracy now. It is a machine, a political machine. Media wasn't as biased. Was media as biased even in 2008? Even in 1992, was media as biased? Not nearly as biased. There were even debates about whether the media had a leaned in a liberal way. Give me your thoughts below. Check out H.A. Goodman's other channel right now. Roger Stone, pardoned. He'll be pardoned. Give me your thoughts.